All right guys, so it's time to insulate the doors, and I've got William here from Door Pros, which is going to save me a lot of hassle in doing this wrong, and he's gonna show you my door's already not balanced and talk a little bit about the implications of fixing that.
So the first thing you wanna do is check the balance of a door before you're doing anything with it. A perfectly balanced door should stay down. Stay halfway, which this one's not doing. And stay up by itself. And to do that, we're gonna add some winds to the spring, which should be done by a professional.
And why is that?
Because they're under extreme tension and they're extremely dangerous. Usually like to give 3/4 turns and then fill it again, because that's usually what the spring loses over time.
So these springs were installed about 18 months ago and the door was balanced. Do they lose their tension over time sometimes?
They do. After
Okay.
about 60 days, give or take.
So it's important to have somebody come out and do a tune-up per se.
Yeah, they actually say in every owner's manual of every operator you install to do it every 30 days, what I just did,
Interesting.
which is excessive to me.
Okay, that's good to know. And are there different size springs? Why couldn't somebody just tighten their springs up if they wanted to add, say, insulation like we're doing today?
These springs are engineered for this door in this weight, in the IPPTs, the inch pounds per turn.
Okay,
So every time you add roughly 20 to 30 pounds to a door, you need to step the spring up. Okay, so now we got the garage door balanced. You can see it wants to stay halfway and stay up. And the way you know you didn't put too many winds on the springs is it still stays down.
okay. If it was too tight, the springs would want to pull it back up.
Pull it back up.
So now we need to check to see if my springs are going to be big enough to withstand the weight of the insulation. And the weight of the insulation came out to about 26 pounds for this door, even for just foam.
I happen to have this special gauge, but there is a way to do it with just a tape measure.
So what would you be looking at with the tape measure?
You would count the coils, 20, and then whatever measurement that is, you could transfer it over and figure out what size spring you have.
Okay.
So you'll need the wire size, the inner diameter, and the length of the spring. And whenever you're measuring a spring that's wound up like these are, you want to take away 3 inches and only measure the spring.
Okay, so while we were filming the actual install of the insulation, I didn't get a chance to cover all the different types of insulation that I'm sure many people are gonna say, well, what about this or what about that? So let's cover those real quick right now. The insulation with the highest R value that I saw as far as like consumer related is the Owens Corning fiberglass insulation at an R8. And it worked out to about $1.65 a square foot as I was looking at it. Next in line is the Cellofoam, which is what I'm using here. And it was $1.03 a square foot. And it's an R4 per inch or an R5 for the 1 1/4 inch. The Air Garage is the kind of air cell pocketed foil backed stuff that I found on Home Depot's website at $1.15 a square foot. It didn't really have, I couldn't find an R value for that at all. I'm sure it has some heat rejection, I just don't know what it is. Then moving down the line to the R5 is the pink sheet polystyrene or polyisocyanate, I forget, it's the thick hard stuff, 1.5 inches at Home Depot or Lowe's at 90 cents a square foot. The R-Tech with the words across it at R5.78, which is a pretty good deal for 60 cents a square foot. But then you have to see those words on your garage door, or you have to paint it, or you have additional labor and time, and time is money, right? And then the thinnest stuff, the R-Tech 1 inch, is 50 cents a square foot at an R3.85. So ultimately make the decision that works best for you. I didn't want to have to cut down the 4x8 sheets. And as I was researching the different types of materials, this foam backed, vinyl faced stuff that I bought has a denser property to it. So as you're cutting it, it doesn't fall apart near as much as those R-Tech sheets. And it was really easy to clean all the fingerprints and all the grease prints and everything off of them, and it worked out great. So let's get back to moving into this install. What do you anticipate that I'm losing as far as heat or cooling loss in the garage?
15%.
Okay, that's significant, especially when you consider the doors are seeing 120 plus degrees outside.
Absolutely.
During the summertime, and I'm trying to air condition a rather not small space.
They say over a year period of time, it saves you 15% on your AC bill, insulating your garage door only.
Okay, that's a cheap cost compared to the cost of electricity and
Absolutely.
running the AC.
And it's a big deal out here in Arizona. We see the extreme heat. The radiant heat is what gets you. If you were to walk up to this door in dead summertime, you're gonna notice the heat hitting you right away, right as you're walking up to it, probably 6 feet away from it. And so this will eliminate all of that.
Okay, so the door's wound. We have correctly sized springs on there, which was a guesstimate on my part. And now we're ready to put some foam in.
Yep, let's do it.
So you notice the blue tape on the door. That's because not all of the panels are the same size in either length or width. So double check all your panels before you start making your cuts. Then you can cut all of them to size. And what we did here was we cut a short section about 1.5 inches wide to fit underneath that L channel where the screws are, leaving us a little bit of that channel to get the large size panel in. But those screws make it very difficult, especially with the vinyl backing, to get the panels all the way in there without really fighting it. This will save you a lot of effort and time without pulling the screws out. You gotta bend and tweak it to get it into the inside. And that's where those cuts in the back are really coming in.
That's where they're helpful, and they make it really homeowner friendly. Just like that. Make sure it's all tucked in.
So check it out, we're making good progress here. It's amazing just putting the insulation in how much brighter this wall is. Beauty strips here fit in the corners.
Also serve a purpose to hold this from coming out, which they will start to kind of bow out and not look nice and tight inside there.
So this is a pro tip. Nobody said anything about these little strips, and they don't show them online. If you know somebody who knows their stuff, you'll get these. So if we were to put something up there, how would you go about that?
So what I recommend doing is spray painting the window black. That way you can't see the foam
from the outside. Because the HOA is going to be butthead about it, of course.
Yeah. And it looks clean. It looks like the windows are tinted.
Okay.
And then you just got to kind of carve out the inside of the foam.
To fit over top of that?
To fit over top of this.
Okay.
Yeah, this right here. Or if you want to get in depth with it, you could call the manufacturer and get an insulated set of glass inserts.
Okay.
This plastic piece right here. And you could take the glass out, put the foam in, cut your square, and then put the correct
insulated set in.
Insulated plastic inserts on there. A balanced door is necessary for the opener to operate correctly and for it not to go out prematurely.
So our big thing that we would deal with if we don't balance the door is we're gonna kill our opener. Is it dangerous by any means? Like, are we gonna put anything in jeopardy by not balancing it?
Yeah, because if you were ever to pull the emergency release on this while the door was up, it's gonna come slamming down. So you could see already how much weight that's added to it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
Just
very
from
happy.
this 1 foot drop, you could tell how much that's gonna do something. And again, it's not wanting to stay halfway. And it's not wanting to stay up. Once the weight starts getting in the vertical position, you can see how much speed it starts to gain.
Yeah, that would hurt somebody. So our next step is we need a tension for the weight of the door. And that's because we have the right springs on there already that we can even do that. If we didn't have those springs, you'd be over tensioning the spring.
Absolutely. So it'd be the exact opposite of what you just seen right there. Imagine that on the top end of it, and now the opener's struggling to press the door down. If you are gonna attempt to do this on your own, which I highly do not recommend, never put your head underneath the bar.
Because that's where it's gonna take you out.
Exactly.
Is the bar always gonna be pulling down on both sides?
Yeah, unless it's a reverse mount door, which is really rare. But you could see, you know, how much
it's gonna catch right there.
The tension is down here.
And if it had momentum swinging, that would be even more dangerous.
Hospital bound.
Have you ever had one give out on you?
I have, actually. I've had one snap while I'm winding it.
That's gotta be interesting.
That'll wake you up.
So what's interesting about these springs that I learned today is they have a life cycle or a duty cycle. I wouldn't have thought that. Depending on the spring set you have and the size of your springs, there's a calculated cycle of openings that they can handle. And in large case, you're looking at 8 to 12 years for most normal springs if you don't have a higher longevity spring. So bear that in mind as a maintenance item just for your house too, that you might need to replace those springs depending on how many times you've used them and probably the environmental conditions that you've experienced.
Weather changes from hot to cold here. You know, it changes the structure of the springs.
Yep.
They snap. When it goes the opposite too, when it goes from cold to hot, it changes them, they snap.
Well, we have such drastic swings here. We have 120s in the summer and 30s at night in the winter.
Exactly. Still a little heavy on the takeoff. But we are getting it to balance. And I like that.
A little heavy on the bottom is okay?
Yeah, a little heavy on the takeoff, but you know, it ends up balancing itself out. So the power setting on this particular opener and all the newer openers and houses you're gonna see are digital, not analog. So after you get your spring set and your door balanced, you wanna come back here. And on this particular model, it's on the back, but on some units, it'll be on the sides. And you want to reset the power settings. So what you do is you just double click this yellow button if it's a LiftMaster. It'll start blinking the down arrow. You just press the down arrow. And this is going to reset it and recalibrate it.
So if we didn't do this, we'd be putting additional strain on the motor, potentially.
No, it would sense too much weight, either coming up or coming down, and it will throw a code, or it just won't work at all.
So you might get stuck out of your garage.
These new ones are super sensitive. So now the lights are off.
And
we
we're
know
solid.
that it's set.
All right, that's another project on the books, and I'm getting that much closer to having my garage ready for air conditioning. I can tell you after 3 years here in the Phoenix Valley, it gets very warm out here. The first year, there was no insulation in the attic, in the walls, or in the doors, and it was ambient temperature or more in the garage all the time, which totally sucked. Insulating the ceilings, I insulated the ceilings to about R30, and that dropped it about 20 degrees overall. Still into the low 100-degree temps when it was 120 plus outside, not cool. Right now, it's not quite hot, and it's been a couple of days that the insulation has been in there, but what I've already noticed is that the temperature in the garage is moderating quite a bit more than it was before. I don't have these big heat sinks over here. We're only getting into the 80s right now, but the garage is already staying about 20 degrees cooler in the low 60s as an overall temp. Next, I'm gonna be digging into my walls all over the place and blowing cellulose into those, just like I did the attic, which is not gonna be a small project, but adding the R21 or so value there is gonna be huge. I really wanna send a big thank you to William at Door Pros for helping me out on this project. I am gonna need to replace the springs up there, which will be a later project. But if you're in the Phoenix Valley and you're looking for somebody that's gonna be honest and truthful about what you need in your situation, you don't wanna do the doors yourself, or maybe you wanna do the doors and have him come do your springs, reach out to William at Door Pros. Again, big shout out to these guys. They were awesome to work with, good friend, and I think he'll take care of you. Take a look at any one of my other videos up here, you know where they are. And I look forward to seeing you in another video. Have a good one.